Guys, in this video, I wanted to take a moment to talk with you all about how to get started building graphics for your system. You can see here, this is one of the building dashboards that we have within our system, and it is much easier to do this type of work if you have a basic understanding of how MUI works. I would strongly recommend, if you have not watched it yet, that you go back and watch the video that I did on building equipment definitions and equipment objects. You need to understand those basic principles before you get started with graphics. Once you have gotten to that point, the main thing that we want to talk about first is we're going to get involved with our graphics dashboard and become familiar with it. The right hand side of the screen, we have our skinny snowman, and we will select that. We're going to go to feature management, and from this screen here we have our graphics manager. Once we select our graphics manager, it's going to give us many of the options. It's going to default to the floor, the building, or whatever that we were just on, but you can move around within your system from here. You would have your network tree, you will also have your equipment definitions, and so on. Now, of course, it comes defaulted to the equipment and spaces tree, but before we dive into that, we want to go through and understand a few more things about how this system works. If you are working with a new system, the first thing that you want to do is you want to set up your master layer. This is the main layer of the system that everything is going to be attached to. Okay, and you can see here within this master layer, this is where you're going to simply set a solid color background, any type of a ribbon or anything like that you wish to set within your system. This is where that is done. Okay, we have this big fat pencil here. We select that, and this is how we will edit. And now I warn you, anything that you put on this panel will appear in all of the graphics throughout your system. Okay, so keep it minimum, keep it very minimum on that. So we're not even going to be touching anything in here. I'm just going to hit the exit button. Once you have created your master layer, that is when you're going to go in to create the various objects, the various equipment graphics and things like that within your system. I'm just going to drop down and I'm going to grab a building just at random here. I'm just going to grab a floor here in just a moment. But first I'm going to grab just a building. This building here, of course, we have our main panel. You can see here that master layer, that solid color along with that ribbon. Everything that you see here is built on top of that master layer. Okay, now I want to go a little further, and there's something very important that we need to understand as part of these graphics and how they function. Again, I'm going to click into this graphic here in particularly, and I want to show you something over on the right hand side of the panel. This is where you're going to do a lot of your navigation. Okay, I have a lot of the options underneath here as far as some of the tools that I use. I simply click one of these. It gives me drawing tools as well as shape tools that I can use. Pay close attention to this one as well. This tool here is an image tool. This is where you can actually import floor plans and things like that for your various graphics. Of course, I would highly recommend that you use a PNG format for your floor plan graphics. That's a very important thing. That way it scales better than what a standard JPEG does. However, you can use standard JPEG floor plans, but I highly recommend using PNG. It's just a personal preference. Before we get any further, I want to take a moment to mention layers. That's this little icon here. I'm going to select the layers palette, and here is where you really need to pay attention. You can see here underneath the layers I have three different options. The master layer is the main layer that we have built in the previous section that you saw earlier. That master layer, that is the very core system, that solid background. you're going to see it appear here at the very bottom of your system. Okay, this is what you're going to be building everything else on top of. You're going to typically be defaulted with a background layer on top of that master layer. And something that you need to remember, you see how that this one is highlighted as blue. This is an indication that this is the layer that we're currently working in. If I wanted to change and work on the background layer, I would select the background layer, and then I would only be modifying things that are attached to that background layer. Okay, you need to understand that and don't get the two confused. Okay, as far as our master layer, I cannot edit that from this panel. I'd have to go back into that master layer editing tool to make any changes on that. And again, I highly recommend that you keep it to a bare minimum as far as what you have on that master layer. Whichever layer you have highlighted is the one that you are currently working in. Typically, the way that we work on the background layer of a floor plan or of a graphic, what we will do is we will lay out the main floor plan, if that's what we're working on, a PNG file or whatever other kind of file that we have. This is where I'm going to put that picture. Again, the floor plan itself is on the background layer, and then the equipment that I want, such as the VAVs and things like that, are added on an additional layer. I can create layers by hitting the plus sign here. I can also delete layers by simply highlighting them and hitting the trash can. Layers can be a very useful tool. From this example, the next step would be if I wanted to be able to assign a particular VAV to a particular room, and the way that I recommend you do that is working off of the layer that you lay on top of the background. You know, use an additional layer beyond that background. Have that background just as the main floor plan or whatever, and then work on top of that. Trust me from experience, if you try to build all of your VAVs and things like that on top of that picture, you're going to make a mistake that's going to cost you more work. So add an additional layer. The way that you would, for example, lay out a room and bind that to a particular device to where when you clicked that particular room, it would take you to that device. This tool here, this pen tool, you can see it here, the path tool as it is called. I'm simply going to select that, and then I would come somewhere on my screen, and then I would just basically trace that room. For example, I would go over here, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to drag, and you can see the line that it has created. I'm going to click again as a corner, and then I'm going to come on over, click again, and so on, just like this. And once I do that, it pulls up a menu. This little menu is where you can change some of the features about the various points of your graphic, but the one that you're needing to pay close attention to is the binding. Okay, this little chain link icon here. Once you have this highlighted and created, you will select the binding, and when you press that, it is automatically going to pull over your room list, your equipment list for this particular floor. Since we're working on floor 1, it is going to grab the floor 1 summary. Okay, everything that is listed here. I can go to other floors, I can find other equipment, I can go to even the network tree and other things as well. But what I want to show you here as far as your navigation, this is where you're going to set up your navigation. What you will do is you will simply grab one of your rooms, in this case particularly a VAV. I'm going to drag it, and I'm then going to drop it into the navigation section of this, and you're going to see there it has highlighted that. Okay, now the next thing that I want something to display. For example, we have the zone temperatures displaying here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop this down, this little arrow here. I'm going to select that, and it may take it just a moment. For whatever reason, there is a little bit of hesitation in the system, and once you select it, it takes it a minute, it'll pause, and it'll come right in there. So now what I'm going to do is simply scroll down to the particular point that I want. In this case, I want that zone temp. and I'm going to follow the same process. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag that zone temp, and I'm going to drop it right here. Okay, this little square here, and you can see there it has now shown the zone temp over where this box is. I can change that. You can see here what we typically do is we will put that zone temperature inside of that room. You can resize it. It's just whatever you want to do. Simply pulling this in here with the zone temp highlighted, you can kind of see here I can drag it and move it wherever I want. It's the same with this box. You know, if I wanted to grab it, I can drag it wherever I wanted. I can also resize it slightly. You know, you can do that with this system. But again, guys, this is just some of the fundamentals for graphics. Again, you can change the text size. I can change my color and things like that. Basic standard formatting here. Something else that I want to show you. You can see that this one is a dark gray. Over here, these are clear, basically to the floor plan. Where you will set that is underneath. Again, I've got this highlighted here. I want to go to this color tab here. I'm going to select that. I can click in here to where it says fill color, and you are going to see what I have is an option for changing the color. I can put it to whatever color that I want. I can also change the opacity and that sort of thing. You can really scroll it down to where it is whatever color you need it to be from this palette. You can go through here, scroll through here, select various colors, and so on. Now, I'm going to go back over here. Let me scroll back up to this. The screen kind of jumps around when you do that. I don't want to save this. All right, I'm simply going to highlight it. You can see there, just click, drag, and highlight both of those, and then I am going to just throw them away because I do not want to save that. Now, this is just some of the basics. I do not want to save the changes here, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out. Another point that I want to make very clear. You will notice from this drop down, you have equipment and spaces. You also have equipment definitions. This is something very useful for you as well. For example, you can see from this one screen how many VAVs that I have just on this one floor. Do we really want to spend all of our time creating individual graphics for each one of these VAVs? Obviously not. However, what I can do, I can go into my equipment definitions. And again, guys, if you do not understand the function of equipment definitions, you're not going to understand how this works. So go back and check out those other videos. What you can do is you can build a graphic on top of an equipment definition. Any piece of equipment that is then attached to that particular definition will have an identical graphic. Okay, you build one graphic on the equipment definition and anything that is connected to it, and in this case all of the VAVs, it will populate a graphic for each one of those. Now, the question that you may ask, what if I have a single VAV or a couple of VAVs or whatever that are slightly different? Well, what you can do then, if you have one that is a little bit different, is you can simply create an exception graphic where basically you will highlight the particular device you want. You can then hit the plus sign here. This is where you're going to add a graphic or delete a graphic depending on what you're going to be doing within your system. For example, if I wanted to add something to this particular VAV, an exception for whatever reason, I can hit the plus sign. And it will give me the option of creating a custom one, but what I want to do is copy of aliased graphic. Okay, I could set it to where I could completely select something else, but if I am working on a VAV or something that has several very similar systems within the overall system, you know, for example, a VAV, I would want to leave that to base the new graphic just on this. Okay. Of course, I can give it a name, I can give it a description, and I can put my authorization category and so on. Of course, I don't want to create anything special for this particular box. This is one that's in service. But I do want to go in and look at some of the equipment. Okay, and again, creating a graphic on the equipment definition gives you a lot of functionality. You can see here where it says aliased. That means that this particular graphic is built on a equipment definition. We have two air handlers that are identical. Don't want to spend the time creating two identical graphics, so I simply build one graphic attached to that equipment definition. Now let's go in and look at a piece of equipment such as an air handler. I'm just going to grab this one. If I did want to edit or modify a graphic, again, I select that pencil and it will pull me into this graphic because I wanted to look at some of the additional tools that you have. For example, I have my palette here on the right. I can select one of these items here, and here is where you're going to spend a lot of your time. Once you have created your layer, once you've created everything else related to this, if you are building a custom graphic, this is where you're going to find a lot of the things that you're going to regularly use. For example, these menus here, these data boxes. This is the data box right here. I can simply grab that. I can drag this wherever I want it to be here on my screen. Once I do that, I can simply click into my links, and you'll notice here the bindings. That's what this icon is here. This is going to be all of my data points within the system. I can simply click on one of those and I can drag it out into the field, and you can see here I have this highlighted. This is where it's going to give me the option to resize it. I can select settings. I can give this a label. I can change the size of it here. For example, I'm just going to throw in something here and show you exactly what I mean. Just call this test because I'm going to delete it out as soon as we're done with this. You can see there I have changed the name. I've added a name to it. And again, guys, I'm just going to grab some stuff at random, just some random data points that I can just throw in here. Very simple, very useful to do. I'm just going to delete that out because I'm not going to be using it for anything. Up here, you will also see a lot of your other points as far as objects and things like that. Air coils. Again, if you're going to build a custom graphic or modify a graphic, you have air coils. You have all of, anything that you would need for illustrating those. Air dampers, same thing. You can see here some of the various dampers. You have air fans. Again, you can see here a couple of the fans that are in here, and so on. There's also electrical. There is ductwork. There's a lot of things in here to help you illustrate the overall system that you're trying to show. Okay, and this is something, guys, I'm not going to spend time to go through every one of these because that would take up way too much of our time. I'm just wanting to hit the highlights on this. You can see here we have a pump, various pumps, and things like that. I want to show you a little bit more about the bindings when you are looking at a particular point within these. And I've skipped over a lot, guys, and there again, I'm just trying to give you guys an overall summary for graphics. This is, of course, the fan. If I wanted to change a binding on the fan, I can simply click that. I have my menu up here. I can select my bindings. These are the bindings that it is already set up as. Now, when you build a graphic for a piece of equipment from scratch, it is going to try to match the graphic to the particular points. It does not always get it correct. Particularly if you are working with older systems. We literally have 30-year-old DX9100s out there in some of our buildings that we have not replaced yet. The naming conventions and things like that do not work. They will not fall in place, so you do have to go in and manually add these particular points. For example, what I would do here is I would simply go over, grab whatever point that I needed, such as a supply fan command from my list, and just drag it in here as you had seen me do earlier. Okay, very simple process. I'm going to exit out of that. You can see here as an air coil. I'm going to jump over and actually show you how you would begin to build a graphic. So let me exit out of this. Of course, it's going to give me that warning again. I'm not saving this. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to find something at random. Okay, let's just find something that does not currently have a graphic. I'm going to grab this chilled water system here, for example. I'm going to select Add Aliased Graphic. Hit this plus sign, and from this here, I can just call this whatever I need to call it. I'm just going to call it test for the purposes of this demonstration. Inside this drop down, each of these here, you have a lot of things that it's going to try to do for you. For example, of course, this is a chill water system, but I would just want to take some time to show you some of the way that this does. Okay, I have 100% outside air handler unit. I have all of these tools, these pre-built graphics here for me. Okay, I can simply go through here, and if it is an air handler or whatever that matches what I'm trying to build a graphic for, I can simply go through here and select what I need, or get it as close as possible to what I need, and go from there and build it from there. I can also select a blank, like if I wanted to build it completely from scratch, that's where I would select it here. It does give you the option of computer room, air conditioner, Liebert units, things like that. All the way through here, miscellaneous. We have exhaust fans, we have generators. I mean, there's a lot of things in here. And again, guys, there's a lot of tools in here with the palettes to help you illustrate what you're trying to do. Terminal units, of course, VAVs, whether it's a dual duct or a single duct. You can see those here. I'm just clicking through here, just a few examples for you. This, of course, was a dual duct. The network is being a little slow, and of course, single duct, and so on. Water. Now, of course, this is where you would see this particular system is a chilled water system that's fed from a central plant, so there's really not a lot on it. However, if I drop this down, you can see here I would have the option for chillers. If I had a chiller plant, if I had just whatever, you can see here this is a 3 chiller plant, 5 chiller plant, and so on. It is the same with hot water systems. Okay, so the system tries to interpret what you might have depending on what you select. But as I had mentioned earlier, guys, it's not going to get it right over each time. It'll get it close, but you're still going to need to go in and modify and tweak to make it work right. And guys, do yourself a favor and do it right. All right, there's a lot of times that graphics just get halfway thrown together, and do not get laid out the way that they should. Do them right. Make it as functional as possible. Make it as useful to you. Make it as useful to your customer or whoever you are trying to build it for. And to show you an example of how it can be done, I want to show you one of the ways that we use our graphics, the way that we use the system, as well as another way that you can use your layers within your system. This is another graphic that we have for our system. I'm simply going to go in here and select the graphic, if it'll populate it for me here. And what I want to do is I want to show you how we use these layers. You can see here that I have 2 additional layers here. I have AHU coverage, and I also have a mechanical layer. They are created, but they are unchecked. Let's check them. Let's look and see what happens. If I check this particular layer, if I wanted to work on this, what this is going to do is it is going to allow me to separate the coverage of the air handlers. Okay, if I click in here, I want you to notice this box. Okay, this box is what will connect to this particular air handler. This is the coverage for this. If I wanted to select this, I could click anywhere on this, and and there again, this is viewable from the standard view. If you click the layers tab there, you have the option of checking or unchecking. But if you are in edit mode and you leave this either checked or unchecked, you're going to affect how it is overall. For example, I don't want this to come up by default, so while I am in the edit mode, I will uncheck it here, and that way it will be unchecked in the system when I'm working in my system. The other thing is, of course, this mechanical layer that we have. I'm going to select that, and this is where it can get real useful for you. Okay, we all have had to dig through ceilings to try to find where boxes are. For this one, what I have done or tried to do, and there again, this is an old building working with an old drawing, is I've tried to match it up to the floor plan to where I have an idea of where the ductwork is, where a VAV may be located, instead of having to simply dig through a ceiling for however long trying to find a box. Having that mechanical layer there, I can simply pull that up within my system and have a general idea of where that VAV may be located. Okay, so that is one way that you can use your layers, and that's a very handy way, especially when you're trying to find boxes and things like that within your system. Guys, again, there is no way I can show you all details about how graphics can be used and within your system. Again, this is just a brief overview, hopefully one that can get you started working with graphics. But guys, I hope you liked the video. I would appreciate it, guys, if you would check out all of the links down below. Those are affiliate links. Anything you buy through any of those links goes to help support the channel and help support what we do here. You know, I put this information out for free to try to help you guys out, and I would appreciate it if you guys would help support the channel. You know, you can also go through the super things, become a patron or whatever. But guys, if you have any questions, leave those down in the comments below. Check out the rest of the videos on my channel. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.